Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Springfield at the Lincoln Library, which, if you haven't been to the third floor in some time, you might not know was closed for about 4 months and has recently reopened. Now, we're here on any Friday morning after the opening on the third floor, which was the affected area. It's been redesigned, and our real purpose for being here today is to give you a tour of the Sangamon Valley collection, which has been redesigned and, as I say, was closed for 4.5 months. Curtis Mann, you've been a librarian here for a long time, over 20 years, right?
Correct,
and
24.
You're now the manager of the Sangamon Valley collection.
Yes.
So you kind of have a brand new space, don't you?
Yes, we do. We took the entire third floor and brought up our fiction collection, put in all new carpet, redid the bathrooms, new administration area, and also the Sangamon Valley collection was taken apart and redone with a larger public area and storage made for one storage area instead of having 3 storage areas. And so we added new furniture on this floor, as well as a new reading room, a sorting room for our public.
And this is the new furniture and the carpeting and the
Yes.
space that we're talking about here on the third. This
Yes.
is this the fiction area?
Yes,
Okay.
all of the third floor is a fiction area, and we just had the furniture added last week, so
Very nice.
we're very happy with that.
Yeah.
And this is where we keep all of our new fiction for people to pick up so that they can see what the latest titles are, as well as our audiobook collection.
Yeah. And let's turn around too, because I think you mentioned the reading room, and if we go this way, this is this the area you were talking about?
Right. This is our reading room, and this is called the DeFreitas reading room. The DeFreitas family actually donated a large chunk of the money that was used towards the renovation of the second floor and the third floor. And so this was named after them in honor of that donation.
Yeah. If you want to get away from the hubbub a little bit and the people just milling around, it's never very loud in here. But if you want complete silence and stillness, this is where you get to go.
This is where we keep, we have groups come in. This is like where our book clubs come in to have their discussions about the titles that they read on a monthly basis.
So they can reserve it, and they can have this space just to themselves for discussion.
Exactly.
Neat.
And we also use it for other programs for the library, and so we've had.
If you have guest speakers or something for a small group.
Yeah, we had a storyteller come in at one time and use it, and we had other discussions of when we did our big program. So,
well, will you take us into the Sangamon Valley collection? Let's go that way.
Great.
And you got to be really proud, because it's not that it wasn't a great collection before, but now it just works better for you, doesn't it?
Yes, definitely. What happened is that we didn't have as much public space for the people to use. So when we got the change done, we were able to expand our offerings as far as the number of items.
Yeah. One of the first things you see I love these old maps and these bird's eye view things. One of the first things you see is this is from 1873, is that right?
Correct.
And so this would be a bird's eye view of Springfield, and it's kind of interesting because there's a little bit of fiction in here, isn't there?
Yes.
It's what people think it would look like at that time. I guess we're looking right. Are we looking at the new state capitol here? And you can tell that wouldn't have been finished at that time.
Right. I mean, they only started construction on it about 5 or 6 years earlier.
Yeah.
And so definitely they wouldn't have had the cupola or the top on it like that.
But the locations are right. And if you look for streets, or you look for railroads, or you look for public buildings, that's where they were in 1870.
Yeah, it's very accurate in the sense of where the houses were the railroads, the locations of public buildings and churches, and just the overall dimensions. And of course it shows what Springfield looked like in the 1870s, and so once you get beyond, MacArthur and South Grand, it just basically is open farm country.
It's fascinating. You have another really good map that we're going to look at, which shows really how tiny Springfield was at the time. It just didn't, the outer boundaries weren't anything like what we expect. And I like this too, because you brought up an interesting kind of a funny thing, because you can see the 10th Street Railroad here. You've got this locomotive speeding south this way, and look, you got, oh, here comes another one coming the other way, watch out. They haven't widened that quite that much.
Exactly. But we had the 10th Street corridor coming along, so maybe they already thought, 100 years ago,
maybe
that we were going to have our combined railroads at the time. So hopefully it's not as chaotic as that appears. So.
When this library was built, it was built right on the location of the old Carnegie Library.
Correct.
That was here. And you still have some of that left.
Yes, we do have a few remnants of the 1904 Carnegie Library. Andrew Carnegie gave us the money to build the library in 1904.
Oh, this is beautiful.
And what we have here is the card catalog from the 1904 building that we preserved here in the Sangamon Valley collection. And so it's got the marble top and the darker colored drawers.
Yeah.
Another piece that survived was this bust. This is a bust of Abraham Lincoln, and this would have been over the door to the 7th Street entrance. And so it was actually pretty well corroded. It had been sitting outside for a good 70 years. So what they did was they took it and had it cleaned up, and so now it sits here in the Sangamon Valley collection.
It's very impressive. It's an impressive piece. You know, you see a lot of busts of Lincoln, but this has a different look. It has a very, very somber demeanor to him.
Yeah, and it's got the word Union spelled underneath, but it's got a V instead of a U. So that was kind of a neat. Neat little.
Now this catalog. Is this called a card catalog?
Yes, it is.
This is called? Okay. This has a very specific reason, and you carry it. It's not big enough to hold everything you need to hold now, but this is for just obituaries, isn't it?
Correct. This is a genealogy collection, is what it is. It's one of the premier collections that we have, and so this collection of the obituary indexes goes from 1861 to the present day. And what we do is we have volunteers that fill out cards on a daily basis from the obituaries that appear in the State Journal Register. And we also have these alphabetical by name. The blue cards are actually for high school portraits from our yearbook collection, and so that's interfiled, and this is all alphabetical. There's also an index for county histories and other things that might have biographical information about a family or a person. And so before the computer came along, this was something that we would use to help people to get to the information in a quicker fashion.
And the collection continues over here, and this is of course your newer, but you had to expand it. You just didn't have room for it. So this is and this goes from up to what year?
Well, this is up through the present day. This is actually the catalog from the 1977 library, the current library, and we've used this for our card catalog for our entire book collection until that we moved over to a computer catalog. And so the Sangamon Valley collection took this over and expanded it for our obituary index. And so there's thousands and thousands of names listed in here.
And you mentioned that you have the blue cards in there, which is helpful because if the only picture somebody would have is from a high school yearbook, for instance, you've got the collection of yearbooks here, and they can just go right over to it and see the photographs as well.
And it's a great tool to get people interested in the history of local, because a lot of times their grandchildren come in, or younger people, and they see those, and then they go over and see what their grandparents or their parents look like in school, and that just kind of gets them interested in maybe their parents' lives or their grandparents' lives, and maybe they'll go talk to them about it more.
You've got a display case over here, which is interesting, and you can change this around. And include almost anything you have in your collection, and you've chosen for this period of time to have in here a collection of postcards from a well-known Springfield citizen.
Yes, Eva Carroll Monroe was the founder and operator of the Lincoln Colored Home, which was one of the only orphanages for African-American children in Illinois. And she had her place built by using resources from the Lawrence family. Mary Lawrence and her daughter Susan Lawrence were very strong supporters of it. And
that's a familiar name.
Right, and we do actually have a postcard of the steamship, and it announces that this is the boat that we're going to be leaving on, Mrs. Dana. And this was after Susan Lawrence had married Mr. Dana, and so she was even sending postcards to Eva. And these are just postcards that came to us in a small collection. And so, like you say, we do put these out on a a regular basis, just to kind of show the different types of material that's come in and something that's new and some people haven't seen.
It's interesting to see where she's been and also where people who are sending her things have been. Santa Fe, New Mexico, and like you say, on this huge ship, the steamship.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And of course, just the variety of what people would put on, a postcard, as far as the different animals or the ships or buildings and things like that. So it's almost a little history about how postcards were used and the themes that they would put on them.
Yeah, they were so much more important then because, I mean, mail didn't travel all that well, and if you could get international mail, you were very fortunate. Now you just text or you send an email or something.
Well,
but
and
then
also,
was a real record of people where and what they were doing.
And you were taking longer trips too, so today you send a postcard, half the time you could probably be at home, before the postcard would even arrive.
Yeah.
So,
but then it took weeks to get across the ocean, and and so you'd be gone a long time before anybody got any news of you. Well, okay, you mentioned genealogy. You've got your assistant over here, Stephanie, working on something for us. Let's see, when the public comes in and they want to do some research, let's just see how it's done.
So this is our.
We'll have to. Since I don't have a microphone on you,
Okay.
we'll have to have you, Kurt, come over and discuss what's going on.
So what we have here is the Sangamon Valley Collection through Lincoln Library's website has genealogy sites that can be used. And so Ancestry Library Edition is one. It's probably one of the best resources that we have for genealogy because of all the different types of census records, vital records, city directories, and things along those lines. So if you want to pull that up, this is how you start out looking, and you can actually search all of these different databases by just putting a name. I mean, as simple as that. You put in a name.
Yeah.
And of course, when you put in something like that, you're going to get a lot of results. And so then you have to start putting in other types of information of maybe when they were born, where they lived, things along those lines to kind of narrow down your search so you don't get so frustrated when you're doing this. We also have another database called America's Newspapers and Obituaries, which is, in this modern age, that's kind of what our obituary index that we just looked at is now there.
Click on that one for us, Stephanie?
Yep.
It's trying.
Oh, it's the computer, not Stephanie. Oh, there it comes. Okay.
And so this is just a collection of obituaries from newspapers from across the country. And again, you can search it for all the newspapers, or you can narrow it down to searching by state, or you can even search by one particular newspaper. The obituaries in these are not as wide in their coverage because a lot of them just start in probably the 2000 and more recent time period. So those are great resources to use. What we have here in the Sangamon Valley Collection in our print materials is the same type of materials. When you're doing genealogy, you're really looking at a set number of records, and a lot of them are the same. It's just a matter of understanding how those records work and where to go and find that information. Census records, burial records.
It's become a lot quicker and easier, hasn't it?
Definitely, and I
because
think
of
that's fueled by the interest that people have. Because so many people get doing their genealogy, and the fact that they can't travel to a location where the records are makes it difficult, and they lose interest. But now that the fact that they can sit at their home computer and look at this material, or come to the library and get on and look at Ancestry or one of the other databases, they can see that there's a lot more information available and quickly find at least something to start with.
Right.
So
come with me this way, because I want to show how much more is available if people have the patience and the will to just sort of go through. You've got this whole cabinet here is microfilm, is it not?
Exactly.
Okay. Would you pull one out for us so we can see what microfilm? Some people may have never seen it.
Sure. So this is microfilm. This is where a newspaper was laid out and a camera was used to shoot the page by page, and then it was developed and put onto a reel. And so in this case, this is microfilm from 1865. Well, the paper is so small at the time, so few pages, they actually could get half a year on one reel. Today, microfilm with the large papers that we have, you might be able to get 2 weeks or maybe even just a week on microfilm. This is a great resource. The Sangamon Valley Collection with Lincoln Library in 2012 actually put all this material onto a database as well. So now from our website, anybody who has a Lincoln Library card or comes into the library can actually see this microfilm in an electronic format.
Wow.
And we are having people that do 150,000 searches a year on this stuff.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
And this, if they want to take a look at it here, you've got these machines. What they do is they light up the microfilm and I guess expand it so that they can actually read it on the screen.
This is a way to read it, and you can also make copies of it.
Right, and the copier's below, so
right.
So you get a paper copy, a hard copy of what you've just seen.
Yeah.
And the other thing you can do over here is you can actually make it digital, can't you?
Right. We have equipment now that for the materials that we don't have available through our database can be put on there, and so you just put the microfilm on there, and it allows you to capture the images frame by frame, and you can also have it set up to do so many frames at a time where it will just go from sheet to sheet. And so but that's for all different types of microfilm, and so we do have other microfilm here for what we call Sanborn maps, which are just maps of the city showing buildings, government records, blueprints, things like that. And so we're really happy to have this piece of equipment, so because some of that material is so large you can't copy it on a regular machine, as well as storing it. You know, that's what the beauty of microfilm, of course, is that it gets all compressed down onto a roll of film.
As long as we're standing here and we've got a nice wide shot behind you right here, is this space bigger than what you had before?
Yes, and what we did was there was a storage room, basically like where this pillar is, there was an office here, and we took that out, and then there was a storage room over in the corner. And so the microfilm had not been in here before, and all these filing cabinets on the other side of the floor were in this area. And so we moved those over, and we expanded our public area to bring in more floor space. And one thing that in this world of tablets and phones and laptop computers is underneath each one of the tables we had put in plugins. It doesn't sound like that big a deal, but before we didn't have plugins. A 1977 library wasn't designed for 21st century technology, and so we had plugins around the outside wall, and so people were trying to stretch their cords and all that. So this worked out really well, putting in right by the tables. So.
Plus your storage area and your back area that's not open to the public is bigger and better organized now, and we're going to get a chance to see that later in the program. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Stephanie Martin, you and Kurt are pretty much the employees that run the Sangamon Valley Collection, right?
We are,
You're assigned to this. And we're standing in one of the stacks here, and you described this as the Dewey Decimal Stack. But what's going on here, these are reports, fiscal reports, city reports, etc. And when you guys get these reports, then you print them and bind them, right?
Right.
So it's, I mean, they don't come to you this way.
Right. No, they don't. We that's what this library binding. We put them in all different kinds of colors. So then we put in the computer what we want them to say, and with the call number.
And they would just be loose papers, other than that, unless you bound them. Okay, so you got a permanent record here in print of all kinds of official documents.
Yes, we
But
do.
you also have unofficial documents, because one of the things you're on the lookout for is literature about Central Illinois and by Central Illinoisans, right? That could be fiction, it could be any kind of writing, but that's what you're always on the lookout for, because you want to expand your collection. And that's what we're looking at over here on this wall, is collections by local authors and about local people. So give me an example of a book that just sort of finds you, or that you find and you feel like you need to add to the collection.
Sure. So this one here, Carolyn's Corner, actually our contemporary fiction book club was reading this book, and they had the author come in into their book club meeting, and then I found out that she was a local author, so I was like, oh, well, they had about 10 copies, for their book club, so I was like, oh, we should have that for Sangamon Valley Collection. So I got the book and had them transfer it to us.
Christy Woods. Okay, so she's a local author. Now you're, and this is not for circulation, but anybody can come in and find out more about it, and if they want to order it, they can, or they can read it here if they want to.
Absolutely, and we do have some of these books then in the circulating collection too.
And you've also got, let's look at some others here.
So the collection's called the Springfield and Sangamon Valley
Let's just take a look at this one. Brought to Our Senses. Now, you know a little bit about this lady, too, don't you? Because you read about her. She was doing a book signing. You saw it in the newspaper?
I did. And it mentioned that she incorporates mellow cream in the book. It's a fiction work.
Everybody knows that.
But, yeah, I saw an advertisement for the book signing in the paper, so I went.
Fascinating.
And I was sure to get one of those.
Okay. And another local author here down here, and I just happen to know this fella. Because we just did a program about him. He's a historian who writes novels.
Right.
And this is about the coal mine wars that occurred in central Illinois from 1900 to 1930s, et cetera. So things like these are really invaluable to your collection, because whether or not these people ever become bestsellers or not is not really the point, is it? It's
just looking to see what kinds of topics and things local authors are writing about, and to showcase the authors in our area. And yeah, I believe he donated this, and we're going to have a program. He's going to come and talk at the library in a few weeks.
Perfect.
So.
A perfect tie-in. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Kurt, there are a lot of precious things in the collection here, but some of them are just over the top, and this is one of them. This is a one-of-a-kind map that you really had to have restored because it was falling apart, literally falling apart.
Right. When this came into us, it was just rolled up, and as we took it apart for the first time, we realized immediately that we had a one-of-a-kind item, and it was in such sad shape. We made the effort to raise money and take it to a conservator in Chicago and have them take the map apart, basically, because it had a backing that was deteriorating, and the paper that it was glued to was deteriorating, and so they had to put a new backing on it. And you can see in places where they actually had to physically tape individual pieces back onto. And so it's rough in some places, but it has so much information, and it fits in a time frame that we didn't have a lot of information about. And so with this, you can see the outlines of where houses were located. You can see the dimensions of Springfield. You can see where schools, businesses, and other things were located by actually a representation of the footprint of the building. And so just so much information. And of course, it's a large format, so when you walk up to it, you're just automatically attracted to it, and you just start looking at things that you're familiar with, and then you look at it and say, I didn't realize that. And so you can kind of see how the city of Springfield was going to be developing over time.
1876, and boy, you can see how small it was. I mean, the outer boundaries are like South Grand on the south. There's almost nothing south of that. Lincoln Street on the west, almost nothing out there. 19th Street on the east, and up to about Sangamon, and that was about it.
Right.
And a lot of open space in between.
Exactly. I mean,
well, let's go into your storage area. This is fascinating because this is redesigned as well. You've got some work area here for volunteers, and usually you have a couple of volunteers here. And then just to our left on these shelvings, you can see that these ancient books. You've got deed books there that go way, way, way back, and we're going to look at one of those. But that's just an example of the exchange of property, the deed books from the history of Springfield and outside of Springfield as well. And then more work area, and this has all been redesigned to make your life more pleasant.
Exactly.
And then back there, I mean, it just goes back and back and back, and we're not going to try to get back there because there's a lot of stuff to jockey around, but what are we looking at there in all those boxes?
And the first row in the boxes is where we keep our photographs stored, and these are archival boxes with archival folders, and that helps to preserve the photographs and keep them in a stable condition. And so that's how we store them. We are working on getting them all digitized onto a database within the library computer system, and that way we won't even have to look at the photos or touch them once they're digitized, and we can reproduce them for people that way. And we're currently about 45,000
No kidding.
Oh, those have been digitized by a very dedicated volunteer who comes in twice a week and
Let's
dedicates
go
that.
look at some of these, because you've got a collection here that if you're interested in looking at old Springfield, it's just remarkable. Let's start with this first,
Okay.
because I talked about the deed books. You got one out for us.
Yeah.
Can we see the front of it?
Yeah. So abstractive title companies would have put these together, and so this is a series that deals with Springfield subdivisions. So this is an index that they use to create abstracts of title. And within this, like a subdivision like Elijah Isles edition to Springfield, which is just to the south of us here at the library, in Block 10, there would have been a record of all the different lots within that block recorded so that a person could see when a person bought or sold a piece of property. So these are very important records. You can even see here that on May 2nd, 1844, Charles Dresser and wife sold to Abraham Lincoln lot number 8 and part of lot number 7.
I'll be
and
darned.
so this tells you how to get to the deed to see how much Mr. Lincoln paid for his property and just how much
that's
time,
precious.
things along
That's
those lines.
precious. And these old photographs that you have that you're digitizing now, this is the construction, not the destruction, but the construction of the old Orpheum Theater.
The Orpheum Theater at 5th and Jefferson Streets, and you can see the ironwork
5th and
going up.
Jefferson.
This is just an example of the kind of photographs that we have here. These are just a variety of topics. This one here in particular.
In 1900, look how the fire department was working.
Yeah, this is the interior of one of the fire stations, and the men are all lined up, and behind them are the wagons and the steamers and the pumps that they use, and they're all set up for the harness. So you would just bring your teams of horses back and hook them to the harness, and away you would go to respond to a fire emergency.
And you know, there used to be a lot of cigar stores around, you know, and I guess they all looked pretty much the same, which it makes this picture very valuable, because this is sort of a standard storefront, wouldn't it?
Yes, exactly. It's a storefront of a man named Mr. Gallagher, and he was called the Little Giant. He was short in stature but tall in business, and he was a cigar maker. And you can see his boxes of cigars, his pipe collection, and a standard exterior of a storeroom with the tin ceiling and the glass display cabinets and things along those lines.
Yeah. How about some amateur theater? Boy, now these girls, they really know how to act it up, don't they? Ham it up.
This is some of the ladies from the library, or from Springfield, 1893, the Pharaoh's Daughter production that would have been at the Chatterton Opera House. And this is just a great picture from that time frame showing the kind of entertainment that you could expect in the 1890s.
Oh, man. Well, Kurt, thank you so much. You know, while we were here today, at least 3 people came in looking for help. They wanted some genealogical help, or they wanted some photographs of old places in Springfield for their records. And Kurt, if I'm not mistaken, they can come in here from 10 to 5. Isn't that right?
Correct.
Okay. Does that include Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. So the Sangamon Valley Collection is open to offer assistance, and if you just want to look at some fascinating things in the collection, you're welcome here Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5. With another Illinois Story in Springfield, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send 1995 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.